الحمد لله الحمد لله الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله وكفى بالله شهيدا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, as to what proceeds, after praising Allah the Most High, separated from His creation in a manner which befits His Majesty, with love and veneration exclusively for Him, and then requesting He the Most High to send His salah and salam upon our final Prophet and Messenger, Khatamul Anbiya wal Mursaleen, Muhammad ibn Abdullah al-Qurashi, alayhi salatu wassalam. We meet once again for our weekly meeting to study the subject which is known as Fiqh or jurisprudence, studying the classical text written by the great Imam of the Ahlul Hadith of his time in Yemen, famously known as Al-Imam al-Shawkani. The text which he wrote is known as Ad-Durr al-Bahiyya, and then he himself explained his own text which is known as Ad-Dararir al-Mudiyya. We studied the first issue, which is concerning ma or water, and coming to the end of the discussion of water, we have some outstanding issues which need to be addressed. From amongst them, a student previously asked a question with regards to if we have water and if water is mixed with algae. Yes, what is the ruling of using such water? Is it permissible? The question that needs to be asked is it permissible for us to use water as a purifier, as a mutahhir or tahur, if the water is mixed and becomes algae, or if water is mixed with chlorine, or if it is mixed with shampoo, etc. When it comes to a substance, so the tahrir al-mas'ala, or discussing the issue now, is that we can understand the issue in the following manner. If a substance is mixed with pure water and that substance is impure, it is najis, and it has an effect upon that water, then that water no longer is considered to be mutahhirun and tahur. That's a straightforward issue. The issue now which is under discussion is that if a substance that is added to the water is pure, is tahir, and the example that can be given is algae, chlorine, shampoo, etc. What is the ruling of using such water? So, for example, you don't find last week we had a shortage of water in our building. There was thundering here in Medina. There was rain in Medina, alhamdulillah, bifadlillahi wa rahmatihi. And the motor that pulls up the water from the khazana or from the ground was hit by striking or a lot of rainfall water, made, I think, There was a short circuit in the motor. So we had no water at Fajr time, most of the day. So we had to go back to the old school method of using a bucket and a beaker and use that to make ghusl. So whilst making ghusl, or having a bath, and you use soap, a lot of the soap goes inside the bucket. If you have soap on your body and you're using naturally. So this is a scenario that somebody may encounter in the near future. Most of us, we use showers these days, so that issue is not easily understandable. But in countries like still in India, Pakistan, Asian countries, where still buckets are used to bathe in, to have a bath, this masala can say understood. So the question is clear that what is the ruling of using water which is now mixed or has been added with something which is pure? So no doubt that shampoo is something which is pure, it's not impure, it's tahir. So you have the scholars, when they discuss this issue, we have that there is a group of scholars who say that it is not permissible for you to use such water which has been diluted or has been mixed with something which is pure. So what is the illah or the reasoning? What do they base their argument upon? They say that this is now not considered to be ma'u mutlaq. This is no longer considered to be ma'u mutlaq. And something which is not ma'u mutlaq, then to use that as a purifier is not permissible. This position has been attributed to Imam Malik, Imam Ash-Shafi'i, and according to a riwayah also to Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. The second position is that it is permissible to use such water which has been mixed with such a substance, for example, if it's algae, or if it's shampoo, or if it's chlorine, it is permissible to use that water, a substance which is pure, because there is no difference between the natural condition of a water and that which may slightly change its appearance. Why? Due to the water still being defined and considered and being called water. So nobody's going to say that it's shampoo or it's chlorine, although chlorine is mixed in there, or algae might be in there, but it's still considered to be water. So this group of scholars, they say that the aslul khilqah, or the natural condition of the water, although there may be a slight change of appearance, but this is still considered to be water. We cannot say that this is something else. So this was the position of Ahmad, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, rahimahullah ta'ala, and this also has been ascribed to Abu Hanifa. And this is the position which is correct. هذا القول هو الصواب. Based on what we have studied, this is the position of the Jamahir Ahl al-Hadith, Fuqaha of Ahl al-Hadith. This is also the position of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. And Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, he says that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran in Surah An-Nisa, ayah number 43, and Surah Al-Ma'idah, ayah number 6, he says, فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً. And if you do not find water, And this has been generalized. It's nakira, ma, kullu ma huwa ma. Everything that which is still considered to be ma. The Sharia did not make a distinction between this type and that type due to a slight change of its appearance or something else, smell or something, as long as it is still called ma. And this is al-qawl raji, and this is what Shawkani mentioned of what we have studied previously, that such water where you might find a slight change of taste or color or smell, but is still considered to be water, and the substance that is added is pure, is tahir, and you still consider that to be water. When you go to the swimming baths and you see all that chlorine that has been added into the baths and the smell has completely changed, it's still considered to be tahir. It's still considered to be tahur and muttahir. And this is what it is. No doubt that this is something which is considered to be water, and there is no harm and there is no blame for the person who uses such water to clean himself or use that, because we have agreed last week that according to us there is only two categories of water: tahurun and najis. So to remain consistent upon our principle, upon our maxim which we have been following for the past few weeks, we can say that if a substance or if something which is added like shampoo or chlorine or algae into the water, then that water will still be considered to be water, and that water is fit to be a purifier. Now, so if you do have any questions, you can send the questions due to Ali excusing himself today to Abu Luqman Muhammad, and he will be asking the questions today bi'idhnillahi ta'ala wa mashi'ati. Is this issue clear so far with the students? Is the issue of algae now clear? I don't know if the Sa'il is present or not present. فَلْيُبَلِّغْ الْحَاضِرْ الشَّاهِدْ. He is not here. No. No. In what sense? The volume does not matter. What matters is whether that is defined as water. The volume does not really matter. That the dhabit is, what is the dhabit? The dhabit is not what is considered to be the volume. The dhabit is whether that is still considered to be water.
Is that correct?
هذا هو الصواب. هذا هو الصواب. Based upon فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً فَتَيَمَّمُوا سَعِيدًا طَيِّبًا, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, and based upon the asal from the usul that we have studied with regards to water. As long as the water is defined and called water and it is pure, then that water, when I say pure, whenever that is called water, and I mean that nothing has been added, and it is considered to be its natural condition. If something is considered to be, if the water is considered to be in its natural condition, then it's tahur. It is a purifier. Nah.
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh. The questioner asks, how do we understand this under the example of rose water that Shawkani gave? Didn't he mean that the water changes from its natural state?
We are not able to hear you.
Naam. I'm saying that when, with regards to the example of rose water, then rose water, water is no longer called water. It is called rose water. It is called rose water. If one or two drops of rose water was, if one or two drops of rose was added into the water and it was still considered to be water by itself, you can make wudu with that water. The example is tea and coffee. Right? Tea and coffee. When tea is added to the water or coffee is added to the water, it is no longer considered to be water. So in that case, you will not be, that will not be, now if that is not considered to be water, you will not be able to do wudu with that. Example is clear. But if a drop of tea was to go into the water, everybody would still, and you still consider that to be water, and you can make wudu with that. واضح, is that clear? The dhabit or the maxim you need to understand is, when will you still call whatever has been added to it, if you will still call that water by itself. If you show somebody orange juice, he's not going to call it water, he's going to say it's orange juice. If you're going to add so much rose to the water, nobody's going to call it water, it's going to call it rose water. If you're going to add tea to it, nobody's going to call it water, it's going to call it tea. As long as something is defined as water by itself, regardless of what has been added to it, like chlorine or algae, then that water will be suitable and will be permissible to make wudu with. Now, has that answered your question? واضح? Any more questions? Is the issue clear with the students? Is the issue of algae clear or not clear? طيب. Therefore,
Clear, sir.
it's clear.
Yeah.
طيب ممتاز ولله الحمد. Further to what I have said, the people of knowledge, they mentioned something which is very important for you to understand. So we clearly said that our criteria for the water to change its original condition are three things: its taste, color, or smell. If one of these three things do change to the extent that a purified substance is added, but it is still considered to be water, then there is no harm in making or utilizing that water for tahara. And that is what has been said. In addition to completely finish this issue, meaning the discussion on this issue, is those things which are mixed with water, or are added to water, where you cannot prevent them from being added. So for example, algae is something which naturally will be added to the water, which you cannot avoid, you cannot stop or prevent. And this is what the people of knowledge says, ma yushaqqu sawnul ma'i anhu. Ma yushaq. That it is literally impossible to stop the water or that substance from changing, or preventing the water from changing its, you can say, original appearance. For example, leaves that fall into the water. Yes, we have leaves that fall into the water and change it. And we have this algae, and we have this chlorine. Is it possible for you now to separate chlorine from the water? Can anybody say, you know what, I'm going to separate the chlorine from the water? Or leaves are falling into water, can you now remove the smell or the color? Possible. Right? So one of the three may change. So there is no khilaf between the people of knowledge that it's in such a condition where something cannot be prevented or avoided, that such water cannot be used for tahar. Everybody agrees, except for the Malikiyah, who say that leaves were to drop into the water, then that water is not fit for purification. But most of the scholars, and this is qawlun shadh, but most of the scholars, Jamaahiru Ahl al-Ilm, the Fuqaha of Ahl al-Hadith, and the Fuqaha of the other madhabs as well, they all say that that which cannot be separated from water. And I gave two examples, and that's the algae. I gave three examples: leaves that fall into the water, or chlorine that is added to the water. In that case, nobody says that you cannot use that water for tahara, for purification. So the asal of this algae issue goes to ma yushaqqu sawnul ma anhu, that you cannot protect the water from, in certain circumstances where the algae will be added. We're pronouncing it correctly, yes? Huh? Algae, خلاص. Algae is British and algae is American. We'll stick to the British. Algae. طيب. Or لهجة مصرية, we change the جيم into غيم. الراجع عند المصريين algae. Right? So that should now finish the issue of water. So we have certain substances which the water cannot avoid in certain circumstances, and algae is from those circumstances. So therefore, the hukm of such water, although its color, taste may change, is still considered to be tahur and muttahir. Now, is the issue clear? واضح وجلي. Before we move on, by this we've given you the dhabit, given you the clarification with regards to this algae. Anybody still not clear on this issue? واضح? No questions? Sometimes the teacher gets happy when he sees no questions, and sometimes he gets worried. He gets happy that maybe everybody has understood it, and he gets worried by thinking that nobody has understood it. فيه احتمالان يعني.
أحسن الله إليكم شيخ. A question that says, and these three things in themselves are also pure. Is the question.
Which three things are pure? Which three things are?
Chlorine, algae, and leaves.
Naam, tahir. This is the discussion. Of course, they're tahir. They have to be tahir. The discussion is all about things which are pure. If there is some impurity, then we've already studied with regards to the issue of impurity. Talking about those things which are pure. Things which are pure and which are inevitable. They cannot be avoided. So tea can be avoided, orange juice can be avoided. These are things which can be avoided. These are things which cannot be avoided with water in certain circumstances. We're walking past the pond, and that sometimes, which is near the forest, the leaves will fall into the water, into the river, into the spring, into the well, etc. So we're talking about those things which are added to the water, like algae, which are inevitable and they cannot be avoided. They are tahir. So in that case, if the color or the taste or the smell changes, the people of knowledge by agreement say that you can still use that water for purification. It's a purifier. واضح؟
نعم واضح. نعم شيخ, 2 questions.
نعم. Any more
أحسن
questions?
الله إليكم شيخ. Water coming from a rusty tap might add a brownish color and some rusty smell into it. Will this also come under this issue?
Will you consider that to be water, and is the rustiness tahir? هذا هو. It could, what the water is coming from, there could be some impurity added to it. Yes? We shall discuss now the issue of tap water, sewage, and recycling water, which is the next issue which is going to be discussed now. بإذن ta'ala. The next question. But the khulasatul kalam is that which comes out from the tap, when you see this rustiness, or you might see some earth added to the water, that is pure, you can use it. But if the rustiness is impure, then you can't use it. If you're not able to differentiate, then avoid it. هذا هو الأحوط.
أحسن الله إليكم شيخ.
Last thing, and I don't think anybody uses rusty water. I don't know. Do you? The tabi'ah of the insan is, whenever I return back from abroad and I come home, there's always rusty water. We always let the water run a bit, the rustiness, even if it's tahir. Tabi'at al-insan is like this. But min hayth al-hukam, still the ruling needs to be given. If the rustiness or whatever comes out from there is pure, is tahir, then it can be used. And if it's impure, then the impurity is transparent, should not be used. And if you're in between the two states, then avoid it. واضح? Is that clear? تفضل يا أبا لقمان.
أحسن الله إليكم شيخ. Question asks, isn't chlorine avoidable too?
It's avoidable?
Isn't chlorine avoidable too?
Chlorine is avoidable. I'm asking you, in certain places, is it avoidable? In certain circumstances, is avoidable. In certain circumstances, is not avoidable. Is chlorine used for recycling sewage water? Is there any sewage water that is recycled without chlorine? Any experts here on water? Anybody working in waterworks? إذا كان هناك شخص فليتفضل ويفيدنا. Hmm? You have chlorine in swimming pools and that. Khalas, okay, if chlorine was just an example, hypothetical, but those chlorines that are, if you can avoid chlorine, then you can avoid. But we'll come to the issue now. There are certain chemicals that are added for water which is recycled. Yeah, might not know the names of them, but they are added. Yes. No.
If someone says, we've just moved to a house that comes with chlorine in some taps and we can't do anything about it.
يا طلبة العلم, when examples are given, don't take them that every single water that comes out now is full with chlorine. This was just an example. Okay? Something which we know. Everybody knows chlorine because of going when visiting swimming baths when we were young. And we could smell the water to be different. First time I went to a swimming bath in my life, I could smell the chlorine all the way outside the pool, walking towards the swim. So there are many other substances that are added, many other chemicals that are added, as we shall now study with regards to sewage water and the recycling of water, and what is the hukm of that. So these are just examples. You might find water which has no chlorine. There's people in villages that don't use chlorine. They use well water. Some people use spring water. There's no chlorine in there. This was just an example. Examples are examples. That doesn't mean that every single water that is used now is full of chlorine. The thing is that when chlorine is mixed with water, it cannot be separated. And why? What is the purpose of using chlorine or adding chlorine in the water? It is the reason of killing the germs and bacteria and keeping the water purified. أليس كذلك؟ هذا هو القصد. إذن خلاص انتهى الأمر. Anything else other than chlorine and swimming baths and swimming pools?
أحسن الله إليكم شيخنا. And brother asks, in certain instances, though rare, algae can be toxic. What will be the ruling then?
Again?
أحسن الله إليكم شيخ. In certain instances, though rare, algae can be toxic. What will be the ruling then?
يعني what does it
What
mean
will
by
be the ruling
toxic?
of the water?
What does it mean by toxic? طيب هذه مسألة now. We will come to this مسألة now. Something to be toxic, a water to be toxic. This مسألة will be discussed by the people of knowledge. The ضابط will come now when we talk about sewage and recycling of water. Now, but answering the question, as the question has asked, any type of water, whether it's even if it's chlorine or anything, any type of water where there is a probability of you being harmed, then you don't use that water. Even if it's algae and it's pure. If there is the darar, if the darar is there, then you don't use that water. Now, فقد انتهينا. حين ولله الحمد. So now we move on to the second issue, which is sewage water, recycling water and sewage water. So sewage water, it is water that people have already used for their living, household services and industrial requirements. And this type of water, sewage water, it carries a diversity of human and industrial wastes. This is what they have generally decided. In other words, water which has been used for tahara, which is mixed with impurities. The people of knowledge, as we know, that the issue of using sewage water or recycling water cannot be found. It cannot be found in the classical books of fiqh. Why? Because this is a contemporary issue, and an unprecedented issue. And this is what we call fiqh nawazil. Fiqh nawazil is called about unprecedented contemporary issues which cannot be found due to the development of technology, cannot be found in the past, such in these circumstances. So the people of knowledge, so we have, you can say, 3 or 4 great bodies of scholars who researched on this issue. The first is the Muslim World League, Rabat al-Alam al-Islami. And Rabat al-Alam al-Islami is a platform which includes scholars from all over the world. So the Ahlul Hadith scholars are also invited from the subcontinent to attend this, you can say, seminar with regards to the hukam or the ruling, Islamic ruling of using recycled sewage water. We also have the Standing Committee of Saudi Arabia, its head being at that time Sheikh Abdul Aziz bin Baz. Also the head at that time, Rabat al-Alam al-Islami, was Sheikh Abdul Aziz bin Baz. The Standing Committee, Al-Lajnat al-Da'imah, also participated in the research of this issue. You have the Hayt Kibar al-Ulama, a third body, again the head being Sheikh al-Imam Abdul Aziz bin Baz rahmatullah alayh. And the fourth being Majma' al-Fiqh al-Islami from Jeddah, again its head being Sheikh Abdul Aziz bin Baz rahmatullah alayh. So these different bodies of scholars, qualified scholars, scholars of the Sunnah, researched into this issue, and they came to the conclusion or the resolution that it is permissible to use sewage water after it has been treated or recycled for purposes like washing clothes or irrigation, cultivation of uneatable agricultural crops, etc., unless it is harmful. So they said that this type of water is permissible to use unless it is harmful. So the restriction is that if this water which has been treated and recycled, this type of sewage water, is harmful, then it is not permissible to use. So if this treated water is proved to be harmful, then it is not permissible to use such water. Then they discussed that recycled water or treated sewage water should not be used for cooking and drinking. So first they said that it should be used for anything other than, one's needs, washing clothes or any other. Here they say that then they continued and they came to the conclusion that you cannot use it for cooking and drinking unless its safety in such uses is proved. That the experts can, with conviction, can give a guarantee that this sewage or recycled water is safe to use. This is the second dhabit that they gave. So first is permissibility of using water for general purposes. Then they narrowed it down and they said for eating and drinking and cooking, that the condition is that the experts, they give the guarantee, there is a consensus amongst them that the water is safe to use. And the third point that they made when they narrowed it down is that it is also not permissible to use recycled treated sewage water for ibadat, for example, to make wudu, to make ghusl, except after ensuring its purity. So this was the conclusion of the people of knowledge. They said, and they gave some general recommendations. The general recommendations they gave is that, and now comes back to the question to the person who asked about rusty water. Yes, if you think that this rusty water is going to be harmful for you, then you don't use it. Efforts for the treatment of sewage water is an Islamic duty. In the absence of the intention to even use it. Even if you don't want to use it, it's still an obligation upon the Muslims and the people to make sure that the water is safe, in order to eliminate any form of human and environmental dangers that could arise from its avoidance of such dangers. Meaning that sewage water must be treated by the Muslims. It's an obligation. It's something which is looked at or viewed from a Sharia perspective. So these, in order to avoid any such dangers, should be taken into consideration. And obviously there is economical benefits that could be generated from sewage water recycling. We know the economical benefits. Even if the sewage water is just rechanneled into rivers and seas after the treatment, that would constitute abidance by the Sharia maxim that dar'ul mafasid muqaddam ala jalb al-masalih. Aversion of harm has priority over the achievement of interest. Now, so the general recommendations that the people of knowledge they gave is that first, the treatment of sewage water is an Islamic obligation. Even if you did not want to use it, you still would have to treat it. Why? To eliminate any human and environmental dangers that could arise from it. Secondly, precautions and avoidance of such dangers should be taken into consideration by treating. Thirdly, its economic benefits that could be generated from sewage water recycling. And at the least, if sewage water is just rechanneled into the rivers and the seas after treatment, that would constitute abidance by the Sharia maxim that dar'ul mafasid muqaddam ala jalb al-masalih. Any harm or mafsada for the Muslim should be taken into consideration. The other point that the people of knowledge they made is that raising awareness about such water used for all purposes, including household services, irrigation purposes, because our Sharia encourages us to do so. The people of knowledge also mention the continuation of scientific research on most suitable, cost-effective, and less power-consuming methods of recycling and treating sewage water to avoid harmful consequences of the accumulation of sewage water. They also mention, with regards to continuing of this scientific research and experiments that ensure utilizing recycled sewage water for suitable and Sharia permissible purposes. People of knowledge, they also advise that strict control over facilities and people in charge of sewage water should be put into place, that the people who are there, they fulfill their responsibility by guaranteeing that all the tests and all the research is carried on and the water is pure. There should also be continuous monitoring of safety of food and non-crops irrigated by such treated recycled sewage water. They also say that people should be informed about products that depend on sewage water irrigation to facilitate access to such information before making purchase. This is the haqq of the mushtari, of the buyer, to know that these crops have been produced with what type of water? They have been produced by sewage type of water. And utilizing wastes in sewage water in energy production and to limit environmental dangers. This is what some of the people of knowledge mentioned with regards to the issue of recycling water. Now we will come to the actual mas'ala, the ruling of. All this was just general information of how some of the people of knowledge, when they research, this is what they said. But now we will actually come to hukm al-mas'ala. But is there any questions before that? What has been mentioned before? So any type of water which you may think may be harmful for you, even if it's tahir, even if it's tahur, and it has a substance which has been tahir, like rusty water and that, then the people of knowledge have said that the avoidance of such of utilizing such water becomes obligatory upon the individual. It may be related to drinking, it may be related to the skin, it may be related to what you use it for. Now, before we actually end the issue, any questions before I actually now talk about it from its Islamic perspective? These were just general research and some points that the people of knowledge gathered together with regards to the issue of recycling and sewage water that comes to our taps. We all know that the governments are responsible, or the Muslim ruler is responsible for ensuring that the water that reaches the people is safe for them to use. Either the Muslim rulers or the governments. Now, remember when I visited Palestine and when I was in Jenin, Palestinian Muslims were complaining about those who are in authority over them, that they cannot even provide us with clean water. Those who are shouting the slogan of jihad could not even provide their own people simple, clean water. Now, going on to the mas'ala, then what is the Islamic ruling of using recycled sewage water after it being purified for purification or as a purifier? This is the issue. Discussing the issue. People of knowledge, they have said that people's excessive use of large quantities of water for hygiene purposes led to the waste of large quantities of it. Water is waste, which forced countries to establish sewers for this water that were later called wastewater or sewages. And these wastewater or sewages have been defined as a mixture of impurities and dirt with pure water. All these impurities and dirt, they were all mixed in this place, in these sewages. So many countries treat and purify this water using modern and effective means, so that the water returns to its original form without smell, color, or taste of impurity in it. So after the processes of sedimentation, then aeration, then purification, and then sterilization, we find that this water once again returns back to its mahiyya. This is what it's claimed, that we know that the asal condition of the water is tahur. So they say that they have this process of how this water, which is mixed, which is a mixture of impurities and dirt, goes through this long process until it returns back to its original state, mahiyatul ma, which is that it is tahur without. So the Islamic ruling on using sewage water or recycled water, so due to the general affliction of such water, people here today, in the olden days, people would value water and would consider water like a jewel, because without water, when we lost water here last week for what, 7-8 hours, it was havoc. Everybody was all over the place. Everybody in the building is coming down, looking at the motor, running here, looking for plumbers, etc. So today we waste a lot of water. We find that our scholars, the devoted scholars of Islam, the scholars of Sunnah, and the reliable muftis, such as Al-Imam Abdul Aziz bin Baz, knowing the general interest of the Muslim Ummah, they researched on this issue. And like I mentioned before earlier, that the majority and of contemporary scholars, they all agree that it is permissible to use such water. And some of them disagreed with that. So the scholars of Sunnah, the reliable scholars, have two approaches when it comes to sewage and recycled water. The first approach is that it is permissible to use such water after it has gone its long process, to use it absolutely. And the most important thing of using such water is for ibadah. And it is pure water in itself. It's considered to be tahur, cleansing everything else. And sewage water, recycled water, will take the ruling of absolute water, ma mutlaq. And this is the position of all the scholars, majority of the scholars. So like I mentioned, the Fiqh Council of the Muslim World League decided in its 11th session, in the 11th meeting, that if sewage water is purified by the methods mentioned, meaning in the question, or similar ones, and no traces of impurity remains in its taste, color, or smell, it becomes pure, and the impurity is removed, and the uncleanliness is also removed. And it was stated that in the decision of the Council of the Senior Scholars, Hayat Kibar Ulama in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the Council considers the purity of sewage water after it has been completely purified, so that it returns to its original condition, based on what scholars have mentioned. So you can say the ruling of sewage water after it was mixed with impurity and dirt is once again permissible to use again. They base this upon this analogy that if abundant water becomes pure, if its change is removed by itself or by adding pure water to it. If you have some abundant water, if this abundant amount, a great amount of water, it changes by itself, impurity changes by itself or by adding other water to it, that water, the scholars agree, the fuqaha agree, that can once again be used for purification. In the very same way, they say that they draw a parallel and an analogy to this, that if sewage water goes through a process which comes to the same result and end and conclusion to when abundant water, it changes by itself, it removes the impurities by itself, or some pure water being added to it, and the impurity disappears and vanishes and no longer remains, then in the same way, sewage water can be used for purification. The second approach is that it is seen that this water is of course dirty. Yeah, sewage water is dirty, it's polluted, as it was mixed with impurities and filth, and then filtered from it, and then it was filtered from it. Meaning, these impurities that we have, this dirt that we have, this pollution that we have, was filtered from it. Its reasoning is that this water brought together three causes. It was water, and when impurities and pollution and filth was added, it had three causes. The reason is that this water brought together three causes, which are: number one, impure waste by color, taste, and smell. Number two, infectious disease waste, like germs, the bug of malignancy, drug density, and etc. These are just examples that were given. The third, the filthiness of what it turns into considering its original condition. So the water was pure, impurity, the filthiness that was added to it, changed its original condition. And because of the filthy animals and insects that are generated from it in the sewers, in the sewers, etc. This was this one. The first approach is clear that it's permissible. This is the second approach. These three causes that can be found in sewage and recycled water, the scholar says, even if the experts are able to get rid of the first and second problem, the first cause of this, so we have three problems with such waters, or three causes of such waters, three problems. They will not be able to get rid of the third problem, which is the filth, contamination, and malignancy, etc. So based upon this, this scholar, he said, with regards to sewage water and using sewage water for purification, he remains to take a position. And this was the scholar Sheikh Bakr Abu Zayd rahimahullah ta'ala. Bakr Abu Zayd was the only scholar that did not sign that document with regards to its permissibility due to these three problems. He said the first two problems can be solved according to him, but the third problem is problematic. He says that this original condition and the filthiness of what it turns into, he said this is very difficult to get rid of in his opinion. But that which is clear, and the majority of the scholars, is sewage water, recycled water can be used. And this was the fatwa of all the majority of the scholars of Sunnah, we know, except for one who didn't say that it's impermissible. He just did not take a position due to the third problematic problem. With regards to this, the issue becomes clear to us that sewage water that has been recycled is permissible to use with the guidelines that the people of knowledge have given. It is the responsibility of the governments and the Muslim leaders to ensure that the water that we are using is safe and pure and has returned back to its original condition. The main argument that the scholars did use from the classical books of fiqh and all the classical texts that we have, that abundant water becomes pure if it's changed, is removed by itself, or by adding pure water to it. So they say this is something similar, that there is a process that has taken into place with adding such chemicals, and by this water becomes pure and safe, drink and to use, either to drink or either to use. So in some countries we have that they tell you that tap water is safe to use for purification but not to drink. Now, which is the case in Medina here, that tap water is mainly used for, you can say, for using, for purification. I went to a friend's house and he gave me some water to drink, and I had never drank that water before, and it was so tasty and it was so cold. I said to him, "What water are you buying?" He started laughing and he said that this is tap water. And I was shocked. Since then, I started drinking tap water. And then he sent me loads of videos with regards to the person who is the minister of water in Saudi Arabia, who went into a masjid, and he went into the place where they make wudu, and he started to drink that water to show the people this water is safe to drink. Now, but you have in certain places where they use the water for tahara and ghusl and for other needs, but they don't drink it. They say the water is safe to use but not to drink. So the safety of the matter depends, of referring back to the experts. With regards to Saudi Arabia, then there is nothing official that says that you can't drink such water. It's all rumors. In fact, we find the opposite. So if there is a need, although alhamdulillah here in Medina we only drink Zamzam, because Zamzam is available for us, and this is personal preference, alhamdulillah. And I went to my friend's house, I drank a jug of that water. And I kept asking him where did you get this? Where do you get this type of water? What's the company called? I was asking him. No, we have Dawrak and we have Manhal and we have different companies. And he kept laughing. He goes, بعدين اشرب بعدين وأعلمك. I said, أخبرني الآن يا أخي يا أخو. He said, اشرب الآن بعدين وأعلمك. And then he said to me, this is tap water that which you have just drank now, almost 1 liter. Tabarakallah. I said, and then the discussion started. نعم. حياكم نعم. طيب. تفضل.
Sallallahu alaykum, Shaykh. Question asked, Afwan, Shaykh, I didn't hear properly, but can we use sewage water for tahara, or only for washing clothes, irrigation, etc.?
You can use sewage water for everything. For everything. You can use it for tahara, you can use it for your clothes, you can use it for your personal uses, and you can even use it for drinking, as long as the experts have you can say unanimously agreed that that water can be used. Now, That is al-qawl al-rajih, and that is the khulasa. Now, is that clear for the one who asked the question? نعم. هناك سؤال آخر يا أبو لقمان. Any more questions with regards to sewage water? So we still have the hadith of Fadl al-Mar'a, inshallah, which we shall complete next week. Bi-idhnillah ta'ala, that's the only issue remaining. But with regards to water, I think for our first study of fiqh, and alhamdulillah, we have covered the classical issues as well as the contemporary issues. No? And if you want to study more about water, then there is a Mawsu'a, an encyclopedia that is available in 13 volumes just about water. And that would be a good buy and a good read, where he has included the classical issues as well as the contemporary issues. Just on water, 13 volumes. Mawsu'a Ahkam al-Tahara. Also issues of Tahara, but many volumes on water. That would be one of the best books to buy on this subject. Printed by Maktabatul Rushd. Any issues with Thames water or Severn Trent water like we have in the UK? These are companies of waters that we have that recycle water. Thames water because of the River Thames, and Severn Trent water because we come from the Midlands. Severn Trent water. Companies which bill you. In England, you get billed for water. Alhamdulillah, in Medina, they don't charge for no water, walillah alhamd. In Saudi Arabia, in England, they send you water bills. So they're charging you for recycling. Now,
Ahsanallahu alaykum, Sheikh. Brothers asking for the name of the book.
Mawsu'a Ahkam al-Tahara. There's a few other, you can say, buhuth or researching papers that have been written, but this is one of the main sources or references to read about when it comes to water. We've just, now I wouldn't even say a tip on the iceberg. This is your first, maybe this is the first time that many of you are studying in fiqh. Allahu alam. I don't know if you've studied fiqh before, but this is the first time. And for first time, alhamdulillah, you have covered a lot when it comes to water. Water is something which is, you can say, a necessity. So if that time has been invested in studying about water, then I feel that because we use water every day, first thing we get up in the morning, we need to use water. We need to drink water. Everything we do is with water. So alhamdulillah, we've given some justice or some fulfilled some of its rights that need to be fulfilled when it comes to water. Now, هل هناك سؤال آخر? Is there another question? Everybody's clear with recycling water. Everybody's happy with using recycling water. I don't think there's any of us who don't use recycling water. This is one of the issues that we used, and then we found out the hukm of it. Yeah? We've all been using, unless illa ma rahimahullah, somebody asked a ruling. Here in Medina, we have this place. There's actually, my family was actually mentioning this to me 2 or 3 days ago. There's a spring, to put up this, where there's pure spring water. You can go and fill up you can say, bottles and bottles and bottles. You see people at night at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and there's just pure spring water there. You can go fill them up. My wife was suggesting that we used that water a few times. But then because here, Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it easy for us, we just open the taps and the water is there. Now, so different types of water are available. Pure water is still available. But most of us, we use recycled water. Therefore, we could have not moved on to the next chapter without mentioning sewage water or recycling water. And I would have not liked my students to have moved on a question on water. Inshallah, if ever a discussion on water does happen with anybody, you are studying or you are discussing, then bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, if all success is from Allah, they won't bring an issue to you if you studied and listened attentively, except that it was mentioned in our class. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. I hope and pray to Allah for that, to the best of my ability now.
أحسن الله إليكم Sheikh. The question asks, what was the difference between the first and third problem with sewage water? Can this please be repeated?
The first, as we know, this is you have to understand that this is the analysis of Sheikh Bakr Abu Zayd, rahimahullah ta'ala. According to him, he believes that the filthiness or that is added into water and changes the water's original condition, in addition to filthy animals and insects that are generated from it in the sewers. He says to remove both these things completely, according to him, is quite, you can say, probably impossible. And the first thing that he mentioned was the impurity, waste that is added changes the color, taste, and smell. So there is a difference of how he analyzes. He sees this sewage water, the impurity changes color, taste, and smell. And then he mentions that these hasharat and these insects and these animals that are generated from it in the sewers, completely remove everything. And to guarantee that the water will return back to its original condition, he says this is far stretched in his opinion. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. This is the Sheikh's position, it's not our position. And based upon this, he did not sign that document, which was signed by all the scholars except him. Now, is that clear for the one who asked the question?
No, Sheikh, it's clear.
Any more questions before we end the session today? Everybody's happy with using sewage water. Anybody here who has a problem with using sewage water? Anybody? Everybody's fine. Everybody uses. Anybody here who hasn't used sewage water or doesn't use sewage water? Not due to health reasons, but due to taking the position of Sheikh Bakr Abu Zayd rahimahullah ta'ala. Everybody uses. Everybody's happy. Everybody's happy paying their water bills. طيب, then that means the issue is done. We have one outstanding issue of the hadith which was mentioned by some with regards to ma'a musta'man. Hadith in Abu Dawud and Nasai, with its not being sahih. The understanding of this hadith, because it seems that this hadith has a contradiction with the hadith of Maymuna and others. We shall discuss inshallah bi'idhnillahi ta'ala in the next lesson. Now, The objective today was once again for you to understand with regards to the rulings of water, and this is the scope of discussion has been opened for you. It is fertile soil for you, and that means that you continue your research when it comes and study your studies with regards to water. Alhamdulillah, that which has been given to you with regards to water is sufficient for you to have a nice friendly discussion with a normal person, with a small amount of knowledge, and even with a scholar, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. طيب. We shall end the lesson here today, and we shall meet. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps us alive next week with his tawfiq. جزاكم الله خيرا وبارك فيكم ونفع بكم الإسلام والمسلمين وزادكم علما وحرصا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.